I thought she was joking when my girlfriend's friend said, "She's dating you for a documentary." The kitchen at Mika's birthday party smelled like vanilla cake and cheap beer. I was refilling my cup from the keg when Zoe cornered me by the refrigerator. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused in that way that told me she'd had at least 5 drinks too many. Zoe and Mika had been best friends since they were kids, and she was always around, always filming, always editing something on her laptop in the corner of Mika's apartment. I'd gotten used to her presence the way you get used to furniture. She was just part of the package deal that came with dating someone who ran a popular psychology YouTube channel. Mika's channel had over 100,000 subscribers, and Zoe handled all the technical stuff while Mika did the research and hosted. They were a team, inseparable since childhood, and I'd never thought much about their dynamic until Zoe grabbed my arm that night. "Dev, I need to talk to you," Zoe said, her words slurring slightly. She grabbed my arm with surprising force, her fingers digging into my bicep. "Like, right now, before it's too late." I laughed because Zoe was normally so composed, so professional behind the camera. Seeing her drunk was like watching a documentary filmmaker accidentally leave themselves in the shot, breaking the fourth wall. "You okay? Maybe you should have some water." She shook her head violently. "No, listen to me." She pulled me toward the back hallway, away from the music and the crowd of psychology majors doing shots in the living room. We ended up in the small laundry room, and she shut the door behind us. The sudden quiet made my ears ring after the pounding bass from the speakers. "I can't do this anymore," Zoe said, leaning against the washing machine to steady herself. Her mascara was smudged, and she looked like she'd been crying before she even approached me. "I can't watch her destroy you like this. It's not right. None of it is right." My stomach tightened with a feeling I couldn't name yet, something between confusion and the first stirrings of dread. "What are you talking about?" Zoe took a shaky breath, and when she looked up at me, her expression was a mixture of guilt and desperation. "Mika, your girlfriend, the person you think you're in love with." Her voice cracked on the last word. "She's not real, Dev. None of this is real. You're the experiment. You're her senior thesis project." I stared at her, trying to process what she'd just said. The words didn't make sense strung together like that. "You're drunk. Let me get you some water and we can—" She cut me off. "The authenticity project. That's what she's calling it. Her research question. Can someone fall in love with a completely fabricated person? Can you engineer a relationship from the ground up using psychological manipulation and data analysis?" Zoe's eyes filled with fresh tears. "You were selected from a dating app 7 months ago. She built a fake personality based on your profile preferences. Every single thing about her that you love, every quirk, every interest, every vulnerability she's shared with you, it's all designed specifically to make you fall for her." The floor felt unstable beneath my feet, like the ground had suddenly turned liquid. "That's insane. We've been together for 7 months. I know her. I know who she is." But even as I said it, something cold was spreading through my chest. Zoe wiped her eyes roughly with the back of her hand, smearing her mascara further. Do you really? Think about it. How did you actually meet? A coffee shop, right? She spilled your drink, insisted on buying you a new one, seemed so genuinely embarrassed and apologetic. So cute, so random, so accidental. She laughed, but it sounded bitter and broken. She went to that coffee shop every single day for 2 weeks, waiting for you to show up because she knew from your Instagram that you studied there every morning. My mouth went dry. That day flashed through my mind with sudden, painful clarity. Mika had seemed so flustered, so sorry about the spilled coffee. We'd ended up talking for 2 hours, and it had felt so natural, so easy. She'd mentioned loving the same obscure indie band I'd posted about weeks earlier on my Instagram story. Same favorite movie, this little-known sci-fi film from the 80s. Same opinions about psychology ethics, about the problems with modern social media, about everything that mattered to me. At the time, I'd thought it was fate, kismet, the universe aligning. Now, Zoe's words were reframing every memory, making them sinister. "She's been documenting everything," Zoe continued, her voice dropping lower. "Every date, every conversation, every time you said, 'I love you' to her. There are unlisted videos on her channel," Zoe said, pulling out her phone with shaking hands. "I can show you. Titles like Subject Response, Week 12, and Behavioral Modification Success. She has spreadsheets tracking your emotional responses, analyzing your body language, measuring how dependent you've become on her validation. There are Discord messages with her psychology study group where she discusses maintaining the relationship construct and optimizing emotional data collection." She scrolled through her phone, trying to find something, but her hands were shaking too badly. "The reveal episode is already edited. It drops in 2 weeks. She's going to show everyone how she manipulated you, how she made you fall in love with someone who doesn't exist, and she's going to analyze your pain as the final data point." I grabbed the phone from her, my heart hammering against my ribs. Show me these videos right now." Zoe took the phone back and opened YouTube, navigating to Mika's channel. She clicked on the Uploads section, then switched to a view I'd never seen before, unlisted videos that didn't show up publicly. My blood ran cold as I read the titles. Subject Response, Initial Contact. Week 4, Attachment Formation. Week 8, Love declaration analysis. Week 16, peak emotional investment. Each thumbnail showed footage of me, captured from angles I'd never noticed. Me laughing at a restaurant, me holding Mika's hand on a park bench, me looking at her with what I now recognized with horror as complete adoration. I clicked on one of the videos. It opened with Mika's voice, clinical and detached, nothing like how she sounded when she talked to me. Week 12 of the Authenticity Project, Mika's voice said over footage of us at a movie theater. Subject continues to demonstrate increased attachment behaviors. Physical contact initiated by subject has increased by 34% from baseline. Verbal affirmations of affection now occur an average of 8.2 times per day. Subject has begun future planning, mentioning moving in together after graduation, meeting parents, long-term commitment. The video cut to Mika sitting in front of her usual filming setup, but her expression was cold, analytical. The constructed persona has achieved complete acceptance. Subject shows no signs of doubt or suspicion. Emotional manipulation techniques, including strategic vulnerability sharing and manufactured common interests, have successfully created a dependency dynamic that mirrors genuine romantic attachment. She smiled at the camera, and it was a smile I'd never seen on her face before, satisfied and almost predatory. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The laundry room was too small, too hot. Zoe was watching me with something like pity in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." I told her this was too far, that she couldn't do this to someone, but she said it was groundbreaking research. She said you'd be fine eventually, that you'd signed up for a dating app so you were already participating in the social experiment of modern romance anyway. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped her phone. "Why are you telling me this now? If this has been going on for 7 months, why wait until tonight?" Zoe's face crumpled. "Because I'm in love with her. I've been in love with Mika since we were 15 years old, and I've watched her use people for content before, but never like this. Never this cruel. I thought if I helped her with this project, if I filmed everything and edited it and made it perfect, she'd finally see me the way I see her." Zoe continued, and now she was really crying, tears streaming down her face. "But watching you fall in love with her, even knowing it's fake on her end, even knowing she's just playing a role, it's killing me. And watching her plan to humiliate you publicly in 2 weeks, to destroy you for 100,000 subscribers and academic credit, I can't be part of it anymore. I can't." She slid down the washing machine until she was sitting on the floor. "You look at her like she's your whole world, and she looks at you like you're a data point. I can't watch the reveal. I can't watch her break you and then analyze your heartbreak for her thesis defense." I needed to get out of that laundry room. I needed air. I pushed past Zoe and stumbled back into the hallway. The party was still going strong, music pounding, people laughing. I could see Mika in the living room, surrounded by friends, looking beautiful in the dress I'd told her made her eyes look incredible. She was laughing at something someone said, and she looked so genuinely happy, so real. But now I was seeing her through this new horrible lens Zoe had given me. Was that laugh calculated? Was the way she tucked her hair behind her ear something she'd learned I found attractive? When she'd told me about her childhood trauma, about her father leaving, about her anxiety and insecurities, had any of it been true? Or was it all just strategic vulnerability sharing, designed to make me want to protect her, to be the person who'd never leave her like her father supposedly had? My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Mika. "Where'd you disappear to? Missing you." I stared at the heart emoji, and it looked grotesque suddenly, like a lie rendered in Unicode. How many times had she texted me things like that? How many times had I read meaning into her words, feeling like the luckiest guy alive because this smart, beautiful woman had chosen me? I felt sick. I pushed through the crowd and out the front door, needing to be anywhere but in that apartment. The night air was cold, and I realized I'd forgotten my jacket, but I didn't care. I walked to my car and sat in the driver's seat, not starting the engine, just sitting there in the dark, trying to make sense of what Zoe had told me. It couldn't be true. It was too elaborate, too cruel, too insane. But those videos, those titles, Mika's voice, clinical and cold, analyzing me like I was a lab rat. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. I scrolled back through Mika's posts, looking at them with new eyes. Every photo of us together, every caption about how happy she was, every comment where she called me her best friend and her love, it all looked different now. Staged, performed, content. There was a selfie from 3 months ago, the two of us at the beach. The caption read, "Best day with my favorite person. So grateful for this man and everything he brings to my life." It had 3,000 likes. In the photo, I was looking at her with obvious adoration while she smiled at the camera. Now, I wondered if she'd posted it as part of the documentation, evidence of the relationship construct she'd built. I checked the date, then opened my calendar. Week 16, around the time of that peak emotional investment video. My phone rang. Mika. I stared at her name on the screen, at the photo I'd set as her contact picture, her laughing with her head thrown back, caught in a moment I'd thought was genuine joy. I didn't answer. She called again, then a text. "Dev, are you okay? People said you left. What's wrong?" I typed back, "Need some air. Not feeling great. I'll text you tomorrow." 3 dots appeared immediately, showing she was typing. They disappeared. Appeared again. Then, okay, feel better. Love you. I closed my eyes. Love you. Did she even know what those words meant? Or were they just part of the script, the necessary dialogue to keep the experiment running? Another text from Zoe. I know this is a lot. I know you probably hate me right now, but check her laptop. The password is PSY 2024. Look in the folder called Research, Senior Thesis. You deserve to see everything before she blindsides you with the reveal. I sat there for a long time, maybe 20 minutes, maybe an hour, watching people come and go from the party. Some were drunk, laughing too loud. Others looked tired, ready to leave. Normal people having a normal night, while my entire reality had just been ripped apart. Finally, I started the car, but I didn't drive home. I drove to Mika's apartment, the place I'd been spending most of my nights for the past 4 months. She'd given me a key 3 weeks ago, made this whole sweet speech about how she wanted me to feel like it was my space too, how she loved waking up next to me, how she felt safest when I was there. Now I wondered if that was week 20-something, cohabitation patterns and relationship escalation. I let myself into her apartment. It was quiet, empty. She was still at the party. Her laptop was on the kitchen table where she always left it, probably editing something for the channel. I opened it. The lock screen was a photo of us from last month, kissing under string lights at a friend's wedding. We looked happy, in love, real. I typed in the password Zoe had given me, PSY 2024. It worked. My hands were shaking as I navigated to her documents folder. There it was. Research, Senior Thesis. Inside were dozens of subfolders. I clicked on one labeled Subject Profile, Initial Assessment. A Word document opened, and there was my name at the top. Below it, a detailed analysis of my dating app profile. My photos, my bio, my interests, all broken down into psychological categories. Subject demonstrates high agreeableness, moderate openness, strong need for emotional connection. Previous relationship history suggests tendency toward long-term commitment and desire for intellectual partnership. Likely to respond positively to displays of vulnerability and shared interests in psychology, music, and film. I felt violated in a way I'd never experienced before, like she'd reached inside my brain and cataloged every part of me without my knowledge or consent. I clicked on another folder, Persona Construction. This document was even worse. It detailed the fake personality Mika had created for herself specifically to appeal to me. Construct interests, indie music, specifically the National and Bon Iver, based on subjects' Spotify data, psychological thrillers, documentary films. Construct vulnerabilities. Abandonment issues stemming from father's departure, fabricated but consistent with subject's stated desire to be supportive partner. Anxiety about academic performance, designed to elicit protective responses. Insecurity about physical appearance, calculated to prompt reassurance and affirmation. There was a note at the bottom. Maintain consistency in persona. Any deviation from established character could trigger subject suspicion. I opened folder after folder, each one worse than the last. Date planning and expected outcomes showed every date we'd been on mapped out in advance, with predicted emotional responses and actual results compared. Physical intimacy progression timeline made me want to throw the laptop across the room. She'd planned when we'd first kiss, first sleep together, first say I love you, all of it choreographed and analyzed. There was even a folder called Communication Patterns with every text message we'd exchanged, color-coded and annotated with notes about manipulation techniques. A message where I'd told her about my mother's illness was tagged. Vulnerability moment. Opportunity for persona to share fabricated similar experience to deepen emotional bond. Successful. The message where I'd first said I loved her was tagged. Optimal timing. Subject investment now sufficient for final phase. I found the video files next. Raw footage that hadn't been edited into those unlisted YouTube videos yet. Hours and hours of hidden camera footage. Mika had apparently installed cameras in her apartment in places I'd never noticed. There was footage of me sleeping, of me making breakfast in her kitchen singing to myself, of me sitting on her couch reading while I waited for her to get home. Private moments I'd never consented to having recorded. There was footage from dates too, taken from Zoe's camera probably. Shots of me holding Mika's hand, laughing at her jokes, looking at her like she was everything. And in every clip, there were timestamps and notes in a separate document analyzing my behavior, my body language, my emotional state. Subject displays genuine attachment behaviors. Experiment successful in creating authentic emotional response to fabricated stimulus. My phone buzzed. Mika again. Dev, seriously, where are you? You're scaring me. Please answer. Then another text. I'm leaving the party, coming to check on you. I looked at the time. I'd been sitting here for over an hour going through her files. She'd be here in 10 minutes, maybe less. I should leave. I should grab the laptop and leave and never speak to her again. But I couldn't move. I kept clicking through folders, unable to stop even though each new discovery was like a knife wound. I found her thesis proposal, submitted to her advisor 6 months before we'd even met. The Authenticity Project. Can engineered personality constructs create genuine emotional attachment? A study in applied social psychology and relationship formation. The abstract described me as Subject A and outlined the entire experiment. It even had contingency plans for if I became suspicious or if the relationship failed to develop as predicted. I found Discord screenshots next, exported conversations between Mika and what looked like a study group of other psychology majors. They were discussing me like I was a lab experiment, weighing in on her methods and results. The vulnerability sharing in week 8 was perfectly timed, someone named Alexis had written. Subject completely bought the anxiety narrative. You can see it in the way he started sending those checking-in texts. Someone else, Nathan, had written. The fake backstory about her father is genius. It creates this rescue fantasy dynamic that's textbook attachment acceleration. Mika had responded, Thanks. I was worried I'd laid it on too thick, but Dev is exactly as empathetic as his profile suggested. He's actually easier to manipulate than I expected. The persona didn't even need much calibrating after initial contact. Reading those words, seeing my name used like that, seeing Mika discuss manipulating me with casual academic interest, something broke inside me. The worst part was another message from just 2 weeks ago. Nathan had asked, Are you worried about the reveal? Like, ethically? Mika had responded, Not really. He signed up for online dating, which is already performative. Everyone performs a version of themselves in relationships. I'm just doing it more systematically. Plus, the data is too good to worry about one guy's feelings. This thesis is getting me into grad school for sure. Maybe even published. Alexis had added, What if he's really destroyed by it, though? Mika's response, Then that's interesting data, too. The psychological impact of discovering manufactured intimacy could be its own follow-up study. They'd all sent laughing emojis. I heard keys in the door. Mika was home. I didn't close the laptop, I didn't move. I just sat there at her kitchen table, surrounded by the evidence of my own destruction, and waited. She walked in, saw me, and her face lit up with relief. Oh, thank God you're here. I was so worried. Are you feeling better? She walked over to me, and I could see the exact moment she noticed what was on her laptop screen. Her face went pale, the color draining so quickly she looked like she might faint. Dev, she said quietly. I can explain. I laughed, but it didn't sound like my laugh. It sounded hollow, broken. Which part? The part where you built a fake personality to manipulate me? Or the part where you've been documenting my every move for 7 months like I'm a zoo animal? Or maybe the part where you're planning to humiliate me in front of 100,000 people in 2 weeks? She held up her hands like she was trying to calm a dangerous animal. It's not what it looks like. Those files, they're out of context. I can explain everything. I stood up and she took a step back. Out of context? Mika, I read your thesis proposal. I saw the Discord messages. I watched the videos where you analyze me like I'm a subject in an experiment, because that's exactly what I am to you. My voice was getting louder, but I couldn't control it. Was any of it real? Anything at all? She opened her mouth, closed it, and in that hesitation I saw the truth. I need you to leave, she said finally, and her voice had changed. The warmth was gone. She sounded cold, clinical, like in those unlisted videos. You've violated my privacy by going through my computer without permission. This is my research, and you've contaminated the study. I stared at her. Contaminated the study? That's what you're worried about right now? Not the fact that you've been psychologically manipulating me for 7 months? Not the fact that you made me fall in love with someone who doesn't exist? She crossed her arms. You're being dramatic. All relationships involve performance and impression management. I'm just approaching it more scientifically. And you consented to being filmed when you appeared in that couple's communication video for my channel. You signed a release form. I remembered that day, 3 months ago. She'd asked me to be in a video about how couples resolve conflict. We'd had a staged disagreement about household chores, then demonstrated healthy communication techniques. It had seemed fun, sweet even, being part of her work. I'd signed the form without really reading it. Now I wondered what it actually said. That was for one video, I said. Not for hidden cameras in your apartment. Not for documenting my private moments and intimate conversations without my knowledge. Mika's jaw tightened. The consent form was comprehensive. You should have read it more carefully. And legally, I'm allowed to record in my own apartment. She walked over to the laptop and closed it, pulling it away from me protectively. You need to leave now, and you need to not tell anyone about what you saw here. My thesis advisor has signed off on this project. It's been approved by the University Ethics Board under certain conditions, and you're jeopardizing months of research. I felt like I was in a nightmare, like surely this couldn't be real. The woman I'd fallen in love with was gone, if she'd ever existed at all, and this cold stranger had taken her place. The Ethics Board approved this? I asked. They know you're manufacturing an entire fake relationship and planning to publicly humiliate someone for your thesis? Mika sighed like I was being tedious. It's not public humiliation. It's a case study in parasocial relationships and manufactured intimacy. Your identity will be protected. You'll be subject A in the video, just like in my notes. No one will know it's you unless you tell them. She walked to the door and opened it. Now, please leave. I'll have Zoe contact you about signing additional release forms for the footage we've collected. If you refuse, we'll blur your face, but it would be better for the project if you cooperated. I walked to the door, then turned back. Why me? Out of everyone on that dating app, why did you choose me? She looked at me with something almost like pity. Your profile suggested you'd be easy to manipulate. High empathy, history of long-term relationships, clear desire for emotional connection, and just insecure enough to be grateful for attention from someone you perceived as out of your league. She said it so matter-of-factly, like she was describing the weather. You were the perfect subject. And I was right. You fell for every single technique exactly as predicted. You've been remarkably consistent with the psychological models. I wanted to say something, to hurt her the way she'd hurt me. But what was the point? You can't hurt someone who's been pretending the entire time. I walked out of her apartment, got in my car, and drove home on autopilot. When I got to my apartment, my roommate Kieran was in the living room playing video games. He took one look at my face and paused the game. Dude, what happened? I told him everything. It took an hour, and by the end, Kieran looked as horrified as I felt. That's psychotic, he said. Like, actually insane. You need to report her to the university. That can't be legal, ethics board approval or not. I pulled out my phone and looked at my text messages with Mika. 7 months of conversations that I'd thought were real. Good morning texts, inside jokes, late-night philosophical discussions, words of love and support. All of it was manipulated, calculated, designed to create emotional dependency. I scrolled back to the beginning, to those first messages after we'd met at the coffee shop. I can't stop thinking about our conversation today, she'd written. I feel like I've known you forever. I'd felt the same way. That had been the hook, that immediate sense of connection and recognition. Now I knew it was because she'd engineered her personality to mirror mine. Kieran was looking up something on his laptop. Okay, so I'm reading about research ethics, and there's no way this was actually approved by any legitimate ethics board. Studies involving deception require debriefing participants immediately after, not 7 months later in a public YouTube video. And informed consent doesn't cover ongoing secret surveillance and emotional manipulation. He kept scrolling. Plus, if she's planning to post this on YouTube, even with your face blurred, that's not adequate protection of subject identity, especially given her channel's focus and the timeline details. Anyone who knows you both could figure it out. He looked up at me. You need to contact the university's research ethics office first thing Monday morning. This whole study should be shut down. I nodded, but I felt numb. Monday seemed so far away. It was barely midnight on Saturday. I'd have to get through the rest of the weekend knowing what I knew. My phone buzzed. A text from Zoe. Did you find everything? I'm so sorry. I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but I needed you to know the truth. I typed back, why did you really tell me? Was it just because you're in love with her, or is there something else? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, her response came through, both. I'm in love with her, and watching her treat you like this made me realize she's not the person I thought she was either. I've been helping her with these experiments for 2 years, since we started the channel. This isn't the first time she's manipulated someone for content, but it's the worst. And I can't keep being complicit in hurting people just because I'm hoping she'll eventually see me as more than a camera operator and a childhood friend who'll do anything for her. Another text from Zoe. Also, she's planning something worse. The reveal episode isn't just going to analyze the relationship. She's going to bring you on camera, tell you everything in front of the audience, and record your reaction in real time. She thinks it'll go viral. Authentic heartbreak captured live. That's why she hasn't told you yet. She wants the reveal to be part of the content. My stomach turned. I'd thought finding out through her laptop was bad, but imagining sitting on camera while she dismantled our entire relationship in front of thousands of people, watching my face as I processed the betrayal for entertainment, that was a special kind of evil. I called Zoe. She answered on the first ring. I'm sorry, she said immediately. I should have told you months ago. I cut her off. Do you have copies of her research files? The videos, the Discord messages, the thesis proposal, all of it? I have access to everything, Zoe said. I edit all her videos. I have the raw footage, the scripts, the analysis documents, everything. Her voice was steady now, less drunk than she'd sounded at the party. Why? I took a breath. Because I want to document this too. If she's going to make me a subject, then this whole thing is fair game. I want evidence of everything she's done, every unethical part of this, before she has a chance to delete it or spin it as legitimate research. Zoe was quiet for a moment. You want to expose her? It wasn't a question. She's planning to humiliate me publicly. She's been violating my consent and privacy for 7 months. Yeah, I want to expose her. But more than that, I want to protect other people from becoming her next experiment. How many subscribers did you say she has? 103,000 as of today, Zoe answered. The channel's been growing fast, especially after the communication styles video you were in. People loved that one. Very authentic couple energy, they said in the comments. She paused. Mika's already planning her next project. She calls it the breakup study. She was going to use you for that too, documenting how people process relationship dissolution and whether they can be manipulated back into the relationship after a calculated breakup. She had a whole timeline for it, weeks of no contact followed by strategic breadcrumbing and reconciliation. I felt cold. How long have you known about all of this? Zoe's voice was small. Since the beginning. I helped her write the thesis proposal. I thought it was interesting from a research perspective. I didn't think about you as a real person until I met you and saw how genuinely in love with her you were. Can you send me everything? I asked. Every file, every video, every message. I need it all. Zoe hesitated. If I do this, if I help you, she'll never forgive me. She'll know it was me. I'll lose my best friend, the channel, everything we've built together. I wanted to feel bad for her, but I couldn't. She's not your friend, Zoe. Friends don't use you as an accomplice in hurting people. And that channel is built on lies and exploitation. Do you really want to keep being part of that? The line was silent for so long, I thought she'd hung up. Then, no, I don't. I'll send you everything. Give me an hour to download it all. She hung up. I sat there with Kieran, watching him research ethics violations and university policies while we waited. My phone kept buzzing with texts from Mika. First, they were angry. You had no right to go through my personal files. Then, defensive. You're overreacting. This is blown completely out of proportion. Then, concerned, slipping back into the persona. Dev, baby, please can we talk about this? I love you. Whatever you think you saw, it's not what it seems. But I knew what I'd seen, and I knew what I had to do. An hour later, Zoe sent me a link to a private file sharing folder. Everything's here, her text said. Do what you need to do. I'm done being part of this. I opened the folder. It was massive, gigabytes of data. Videos, documents, screenshots, months and months of evidence. Kieran looked over my shoulder and whistled low. This is going to destroy her channel. Probably get her kicked out of the program too. I nodded. Good. We stayed up all night going through it, organizing everything into a clear timeline. Kieran had taken a media law class last semester, and he helped me figure out what I could legally post and what I needed to be careful with. By sunrise, we had a plan. I would create my own video, telling my side of the story before Mika could control the narrative. I'd include enough evidence to prove everything without violating any laws. On Sunday, I didn't leave my apartment. I wrote the script for my video, rewrote it again. I wanted to be clear, factual, not emotional, even though I felt like my chest had been hollowed out. Kieran helped me film it, just me sitting in front of my bedroom wall, looking directly at the camera. I told the whole story, how we met, how the relationship developed, how I'd found out about the experiment. I showed screenshots of her thesis proposal with identifying information blurred. I showed excerpts from the Discord conversations. I played audio from some of the unlisted videos, her voice cold and clinical as she analyzed me. I explained that I was coming forward because I didn't want this to happen to anyone else, and because what she'd done wasn't ethical research, it was abuse disguised as psychology. The video was 23 minutes long. We uploaded it to my personal YouTube account, which had exactly 12 subscribers, mostly family and friends from high school. I titled it, I Was My Girlfriend's Psychology Experiment, The Truth About the Authenticity Project. I posted it at 8 p.m. Sunday night. Then I emailed the link to the university's research ethics office with a formal complaint, including all of Zoe's files as attachments. I sent another email to Mika's academic advisor and another to the dean of the psychology department. I tagged Mika's channel in the video description and posted the link on my Instagram story. Then I turned off my phone and tried to sleep. I couldn't. Around midnight, Kieran knocked on my bedroom door. Dude, you need to see this. He showed me his laptop. My video had 15,000 views already. The comment section was exploding. People were horrified, outraged, tagging Mika's channel, demanding explanations. Someone had already created a Twitter thread compiling evidence. Another person had found Mika's Instagram and was posting comments on every photo, calling her a sociopath. By Monday morning, my video had 200,000 views. It had been picked up by a popular psychology commentary channel and was being discussed on Reddit. Campus news blogs were writing articles. The university had released a statement saying they were investigating allegations of research ethics violations. Mika's YouTube channel had been flooded with negative comments until she disabled them and made all her videos private. Her Instagram was set to private too. I turned my phone back on to hundreds of messages. Friends, acquaintances, people I barely knew all reaching out with support or questions. News outlets asking for interviews. And one message from Mika. Just one. You destroyed me. I blocked her number. I didn't owe her anything, least of all a response. The university investigation moved fast. By Wednesday, I'd given a formal statement to the ethics board. Zoe gave one too, confirming everything and providing her own testimony about how the research had been conducted. The other psychology students from the Discord chat were called in. Mika's advisor claimed he'd never seen the full scope of the project, only a sanitized version that made it sound like a standard observational study of relationship dynamics. The ethics board found that Mika had fabricated the approval documents she'd shown her study group. There had never been any legitimate ethical oversight. By Friday, a week after my video went up, the university announced that Mika had been expelled from the psychology program for serious research ethics violations, academic dishonesty, and conduct unbecoming. Her thesis was rejected. She would not graduate. Her YouTube channel was permanently suspended for violating community guidelines on harassment and exploitation. My video had over 1 million views by then. It had sparked a broader conversation about consent in content creation and the ethics of social experiments. Other psychology students came forward with stories of questionable research practices at the university. The department announced a complete review of their research oversight procedures. I did a few interviews, mostly with online publications focused on psychology and ethics. I tried to be measured, to focus on the systemic issues, rather than just my personal hurt. But the hurt was still there, raw and constant. I'd have moments where I'd forget, where I'd think of something funny I wanted to tell Mika, and then I'd remember. None of it was real. The person I wanted to tell didn't exist. Therapy helped. I found a counselor who specialized in emotional manipulation and abuse. She told me what I'd experienced was a form of psychological violence, that manufactured intimacy was a real and damaging thing, that my trauma was valid even though the relationship had been fake. Slowly, painfully, I started to rebuild. I learned to trust my own perceptions again, to believe in my ability to judge people's authenticity. It took months. I heard through mutual friends that Mika had moved back to her hometown, that she was working retail, and had deleted all her social media. Part of me felt bad for her. The internet had been vicious, and her life had been destroyed just as thoroughly as mine had been. But then I'd remember her words. Then that's interesting data too. I remembered her willingness to document my heartbreak for views and academic credit, and I couldn't feel too bad. Zoe and I stayed in touch. She was in therapy too, working through her own complicity and the toxic friendship she'd maintained for so long. She'd started her own YouTube channel, doing video essays about ethics in psychology and the dark side of content creation. It was growing slowly but steadily, built on honesty instead of exploitation. 6 months after everything imploded, I went on a date, a real one, with a woman I'd met in my statistics class. Her name was Raina, and she was straightforward and kind. When she told me about herself, I found myself analyzing her words, looking for inconsistencies, signs of performance. She noticed. "You okay?" she asked. "You seem tense." I told her a simplified version of what had happened. She listened, didn't interrupt, and when I finished, she said, "That's horrible. I'm sorry someone did that to you." Then she smiled. "For what it's worth, I'm genuinely interested in getting to know you, and I'm absolutely terrible at pretending to be anything I'm not. I once tried to lie about liking my friend's cooking, and my face gave me away immediately. It wasn't a perfect date, but it was real, and that mattered more than I could articulate. We went out again, and slowly, carefully, I learned how to trust again. The videos stayed up. Every few weeks, I'd get messages from people thanking me for sharing my story, telling me about their own experiences with manipulation or exploitation in relationships. Some were heartbreaking, others were hopeful, stories of healing and moving forward. I realized that while I'd never have chosen what happened to me, coming forward about it had created something meaningful. A year later, I was sitting in a coffee shop, the same one where Mika had staged our meeting. I'd avoided it for months, but eventually I'd decided not to let her take that space from me too. I was there with Raina, and we were laughing about something stupid, and I realized I hadn't thought about Mika in days. That felt like victory. My phone buzzed, an email from a documentary filmmaker who'd seen my video. She wanted to interview me for a project about digital age manipulation and the ethics of content creation. I almost laughed at the irony. Another documentary. But this one would be with my full, informed consent, and my story would be told on my own terms. I wrote back and said yes. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.